Everyone, welcome to my Real Estate Investors Hangout. We meet on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. And tonight I have with me a special guest, Robert McPhee, and he's going to talk about how to unlock your limiting beliefs about money. And that's in preparation for us launching a prosperity game, which will start on Monday, next Monday, July 13th. So I'm going to play my intro video and then we'll be right back. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming to our Real Estate Investors Hangout. Tonight I have a special guest with me, and we're going to be talking about how to manifest money into your business. So besides real estate investors and realtors tonight, we've invited other business owners who want to bring money into their business. So tonight we'll be generally talking about business, and I may touch a little bit on the aspects of real estate in terms of bringing money in from private lenders who want to invest in your projects or do a joint venture agreement with you on a project. So I'm going to introduce Robert, and let's get started. Oh, I'm going to put up a poll as well right now on the side where the chat is. You will see a poll, and that just invites you to tell us how many deals you've done and the type of deals you've done, whether it be wholesales, flips, or whether you own rental properties. And it gives me a way to assess the audience and target future topics based on the people and their interests who come to the Hangout. So I'm going to introduce Robert. So Robert's at his place, meeting us from Encinitas, California, and I'm in Poway, California. So still, both of us are in San Diego County, so not too far away. So Robert, I would like to ask you, what gives you the right to teach us about manifesting money in our lives? Well, a simpler question is, why should we listen to you?
I thought you were going to give me some big lavish introduction and read my bio and all that. You're just going to put me right on the spot, huh? I love that.
Well, I figured you would tell us about your bio and why should we listen to you.
Okay, perfect. No, I'm thrilled to be here. You and I have been talking about doing this for a long time. And as you mentioned, we're going to be doing the prosperity game and kind of working on that together. Mm-hmm. In terms of why the audience should listen to me, there's really two reasons. One is I've been very blessed in terms of, since I first graduated from college way back when, I won't tell you when because it reveals how old I am. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been in business for myself. I've been out there. I've raised money to start businesses. I've bought and sold businesses. I had a very short stint in corporate America, which was just long enough to teach me that I really want to be out there in the entrepreneurial world, working on my own. But I have had the experience in corporate America, and I've also done quite a bit of consulting in corporate environments. I've done work with real estate companies like Coldwell Banker and Keller Williams. Mm-hmm. I've also done work with companies in the biotech industry, quite a few companies in the health and fitness arena. And I've also recently really focused a lot more of my work in the educational arena, working with colleges and universities. But the second reason, aside from kind of the bio and my client list and things like that, I think the real reason why, and it really relates to the prosperity game, is it's about money, but it's also about our mindset. And for the last 15 years, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the very best in the personal and professional development world. I was the director of training for Jack Canfield's company. Wow. The people who don't know Jack, they all know a little project he started called Chicken Soup for the Soul, which sold 500 million books. And I worked very closely with Jack for a long time, and he was a great mentor to me. And he also put me in contact with some of the other really great leaders in the personal and professional development industry. And I've had the chance to really learn about the ins and outs and the real kind of the secrets, if you will, of how we get in our own way, how our beliefs and our attitudes really do determine the results we get, whether it's in the area of prosperity and money or with our health and relationships and business, whatever it is. And although we'll talk about money in business today, when it's me doing the work, it'll always really zero in and focus on the inner work as well as the kind of the to-dos and the tasks and the actions that we need to take in order to get the results we want.
That's an awesome introduction. See, it was better than if I did it myself.
No, I was only kidding too. I always feel like I want to get through the bio introduction as quick as possible and get right into the juice of what we're talking about.
So. Yeah, exactly. So, Robert, what type of person would benefit? I should put myself on screen here. What type of person would benefit from playing the prosperity game with us? And it starts.
Well, I think anybody who is either unhappy or dissatisfied with where they're at in terms of money, or even anyone who might be in a really good place with money, but they're really curious about the dynamics of money. You know, money is such a critical part of our survival and our existence in today's society. There's really no way of getting around money without creating some pretty disastrous circumstances in our life. If we don't do a good job of acquiring money, if we don't do a good job of managing the money that is coming into our life tends to get pretty difficult and stressful and full of anxiety. And I don't think any of us want that. And if we look around and we see the people who have really mastered the art of not only attracting money, but managing their money well, I think that's very appealing to most people. And this simple game that I actually first learned in a workshop environment is a really profound way. And in just a few minutes a day, we're going to be playing the game for 2 weeks. And in really just a few minutes a day, people can have the opportunity to explore what their own beliefs about money are, and also their own strategies for how they handle money. And I think even most importantly, where their own self-imposed limitations are in the area of money. And they can do that while having some fun, because it is a game. Yeah. It's a very low stress environment. It gives us an opportunity to learn those valuable lessons by kind of playing with the whole notion that the mind doesn't know the difference between a real and a vividly imagined event. So without going out and taking any risks in the financial arena, we can explore these kinds of issues of how we get in our own way, how we manage and handle the money that comes into our lives, and again, just what our self-imposed limitations are.
That's awesome. That's a really important topic. Limiting beliefs come up in every area of our life. And of course, money is kind of a pervasive topic that kind of enters into everything. It kind of overlaps family, home, work, environments. So I'm glad we're gonna do that. So tell us, how does the game start, and where do we play the game? These are more the mechanics of it.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, the game is very simple. It's nothing complex or difficult to do. It's played online. Like I said, I first learned it in a workshop environment, and I learned it from a gentleman by the name of Jim Bunch, who is one of my coaches, one of my mentors. He's a brilliant coach, and he was playing it in a workshop environment, and I saw an opportunity to play it on a larger scale and to do it online in a way that it could reach out to people in a different kind of way and involve more people. So I've probably facilitated this game online maybe 10 or 12 times now, maybe more. I'd have to go back and check. But it's a very simple mechanism. If people are interested in playing, what they do is they go actually to the web address that I've got right underneath my name here, which is my website, and a hidden page on that website. It's robertmcphee.com/prosperity. And there's a simple form there for people to sign up and register their email. And this is not an email sign up so that I have permission to send them, 2,700 spam messages. What it is it's a way for them to register to play the game, because the way the game works is every day that we're playing the game, and like you said, we're going to start next Monday for this round on July 13th, and we'll play Monday through Saturday for 2 weeks. So there'll be a total of 12 game days. And each day we play, I'll be sending out an email message to everyone who's registered, and in the message there will be a check. Just a picture of a check in the message. And there will be instructions and a link to click through to a private Facebook group. So this is the second half of what people need to do to register to play the game. They need to request to join this private Facebook group. And when they click through to the Facebook group, what they'll do is they will answer 2 simple questions about their check. Question number 1 is, where did the money come from? So we're actually starting on Monday, but I've already sent out, for the people who have already registered, they've already received 2 bonus checks, just so they're, when they sign up, they're excited, they want to play, and I don't want them to have to wait. So I've sent out 2 bonus checks to give people a chance to kind of, test out the mechanics and see how it works and start engaging with each other. So I sent out a check on Sunday for $100, and people click through to the Facebook page and they answer 2 questions. Number 1 was, where did the money come from? And then number 2 is, what are you going to do with it? So for question number one, people will say, I earned it, I sold something, maybe someone gave it to me, maybe I found it. It's really completely up to them. They can come up with whatever reason they want for where this money came from. And then the second part, and we ask people to answer the second question, assuming that their debts are paid. We have a lot of people in today's world that are carrying a lot of debt. It's creating a lot of pressure and stress in their lives. That's not really what this game is about. And if people were to spend the game by, first of all, paying off their debts, some of them would really miss out on a lot of the insights and ideas that are available in the game. So not to say that we shouldn't pay off our debts, not to say that we shouldn't make that a priority, but we do ask that people, when they play the game, they play as if their debts are paid, mostly just so they get the full benefit of the experience of the game. And the second question, again, is what will you do with the money? Are you going to spend it? Are you going to save it? Are you going to invest it? Are you going to give it away? Again, totally up to you. So that's it. That's the game. Two simple questions. And where the real growth and where the insights and the ideas about where our limiting beliefs about money show up is every time I send out one of these messages, the amount of the check has doubled. So you guys are going to think I'm really bad at math, but you know, the first check I sent out was for $100. Right. The check that I sent out actually earlier today to the people who've already registered was for $250. Now I know $250 is not double of $100. My daughter is the math genius, but I know enough to know that. But the reason I did that is we always start the game with an amount of $500. And it goes 500 and then 1,000 and then 2,000 and continues doubling over the course of those 12 days. And you know, you can multiply it out if you want, but suffice it to say that the numbers get pretty big. So by the end of the second week, we're dealing with some significant amounts of money. And for most people, you know, I'm sending out checks of 100 or 500 or even a couple of thousand. For most people, that's not going to make a significant difference in their lives. But once we get into 5 figures and 6 figures, and we start asking ourselves, where would that kind of money come from? And what would I do with it? There's some very powerful insights that become available to people, some really profound learning. And I love the fact that you and I talked about this a long time ago in the context of real estate investors, because real estate investors need to be attracting money in order to do the kind of deals they want to do.
Right.
And what you and I were talking about was that a lot of real estate investors have these self-imposed limitations around money, and they're missing out on opportunities because they're not willing to open up to where more money could come from. Exactly. And I think for your community, this is going to be one of the most powerful lessons that's available. Again, in this game environment, there's no risk. Let's just play with this for a couple of weeks and see, you know, where would a check for 500,000 or $1 million come from, and see if there's some possibilities that maybe we haven't considered.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for the intro. And I think, you know, for my audience in real estate, I have an ebook that's on my website, and that teaches you how to change your mindset about money. And the mindset people have is that I'm asking for money. You're asking someone to give it to you, but really, I changed their mindset into they are giving people an opportunity that they can find nowhere else. You cannot find this opportunity to get a high rate of return backed by a physical asset where you actually know the person who's doing the work. You can't do that in the stock market. And so you don't know the CEOs, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and the company can go bankrupt, whereas a house doesn't go bankrupt. So all these things are involved with, you know, a physical asset. And so in my book, what I do is, and I have like a couple of emails that follow up on the book, like an e-course, and it encourages people to practice on broke people. Now, the reason I do that is because broke, you know, that person doesn't have any money to lend you, but they know people who have money. In fact, they're very focused on who else has money because they don't have it, right? So I get them to practice on broke people because it takes away the fear. You know the answer is going to be no, but then you can say, do you know anyone else who might be able to do this, who would want to invest, who could, you know, how about your uncle, or, you know, you have a friend or your boss at work. So it gives you a chance to practice talking about the opportunity, and I don't want to say asking for money, I want to say discussing the opportunity in a non-threatening environment, because you're asking someone who you know can't really do it. And sometimes people are surprised. Somebody may have gotten an insurance settlement and they have a lot of money stashed away, or they're coming up into that kind of insurance settlement in their life for some other reason, and they are able to do it. So it's really just a question of practicing and getting the word out. And almost like the game, we have a little system where you have 5 people that you're going to approach, and you have to have those conversations every week. And then you take 2 people off your list and you add 2 more people to the list. So you're always having those conversations with a new group. And like I just have them, if they're afraid, I have them start with people who are probably going to say no. And it just makes it easier for them. So
yeah, and it does kind of mimic what we're doing here with the game, because this game is an opportunity to play with those conversations, to think about who you might ask in an environment where we're just playing. But like I said before, there's something really profound that I've learned that I believe is absolutely true. The mind cannot tell the difference between a real and a vividly imagined event. Mm-hmm. So if we really play this game full out, and again, it is just a game. There's nothing you can lose. I always say the only way you can lose this game is if you stop playing. And one of the things we strongly encourage people to do at the beginning is to make a commitment to play all the way to the end. Right. And you'll see as you're playing the game, there's a lot of people who come back and play multiple times. And one of the reasons they come back and play again is because they didn't finish previously and they feel like they missed out on an opportunity. So it is really important to play all the way, but there's really no way to lose. The opportunity is there for everyone. And the insights that I'll get will be different than the insights that you'll get, will be different from the insights that someone else will get, because all of our situations around money are very, very different. The other thing that you said that really, really, I think, touched on something so important, and I love that strategy of having people reach out to people that they just know are going to say no. Years and years ago, I ran a marathon. It was my youngest daughter, who actually just graduated from high school, so that tells you how long ago this is. She was in kindergarten, and there was a little girl in her class who had been diagnosed with leukemia. So I ran a marathon with a fundraising organization that was raising money for the Leukemia Society, and I had to raise a certain amount of money in order to qualify and not have to pay it myself. Right. So I drafted this letter, and I just made a long list of all these people I was going to send it to. And there were some people on that list who I know, they had a lot of money and they were in a position where they could donate a lot of money. And I just knew I was going to get a big donation from them. And there were other people I really knew they didn't have any money, but I didn't want to exclude them. And I wanted to include them. And I really didn't expect that I would get anything from them, but I sent them the letter anyway. And I was amazed at how many of those people who had all sorts of money, and I knew were going to donate, either didn't donate anything or they made some little tiny donation. And I was equally shocked that some of those people, I had no idea, they didn't have any money. I didn't expect anything from them. And so those were some of my biggest and most significant donors. So I think what you were talking about is just a brilliant strategy to get people to just get into those conversations, engage, see what happens. When you don't think there's anything there, it's actually easier because you don't feel like there's a risk of getting rejected. Right. So I love that.
Well, it shows that most of what we think about money is a preconceived notion that we came up with, because you came up with that list. You probably had columns. These people might, these people, no, I don't think so. I mean, in your mind, they all had a different perspective on how that would work. And when we start the game with $500, for most real estate investors, they're not going to do much with that. Maybe they'll buy a tool or something, but very quickly in the first couple of days, we'll be getting into several $1,000s. And I'll have to say, on some of our deals, we will let someone start with $20,000 as an investment, because we look at that as that is the rehab money. We encourage people to go to 50 to start, but it makes people comfortable knowing, well, they could just come in with 20. And what I found is that, with the older retired people, my friends, it's, money from work or an old 401k that they can invest or something like that. But they'll tell me that their parents have money, and their parents will, and I let them put in a small amount, like, 10, 6,000, whatever it is they want to put in. And they're thrilled after 4 months in that investment to get a check with their principal back and a couple $100 in interest because they're getting 1% in the bank.
Yep.
1%, and now with us they're getting 10%, and they're just happy, and they even want to go look at the house and walk through it and see how it's working out, and it's nice to be able to. I feel I'm giving them an opportunity to make money where they can see it and touch. They know where the money's going, and
yeah. Nobody wants to walk down. Nobody wants to walk down to the bank and walk into the vault and look at their money. But if they're investing in a house project, it's real, it's tangible, it's making a difference, it's creating a home for somebody. Yeah, I can totally see that. It makes sense.
Yeah, so they really enjoy it. So I just want to let everyone know that the first couple of days may not seem, especially if you're in business or real estate, that it's that significant. But very quickly, those numbers are going to be in the significant range. And if you're not, if you're a realtor, it can be a commission. If you're a real estate investor, it can be private money coming into one of your investments. So we encourage people to be very specific about what the money's for, because in your brain, that is just, it's real. Your brain can't tell the difference. So the more details you give in the Facebook post, the more real you're helping your own brain assimilate that information, and it becomes real for you. So I look forward to the first couple of days jumping that amount up pretty quick. And as we go further, if you're an investor, now you're going past what a regular house is that you're going to flip. You're getting into apartment buildings and things like that, commercial. So in 2 weeks we can run the whole gamut of starting with rehab money and going all the way up to owning an apartment complex. So I think that's a pretty cool and fun way to do it. I'm going to ask.
Yeah, and there's something magical about kind of slowly stepping into it. I think sometimes one of the traps that we fall into is trying to make it all happen, in the first day. And I get what you're saying. I think for your real investors here, for your people that are doing this as a business, they're going to find that the amounts of money that can really make a difference in their business aren't going to kick in until the beginning of the second week. But they're also going to find, over the 6 days of the second week, they're probably going to catapult really quickly from, amounts that are at the lower end of what can make a difference in their business to amounts that are very much beyond what they may have thought of before.
Right.
So they'll get the experience in that second week. But there's kind of a priming effect in the first week of us kind of leaning into it and kind of gently, $500, I don't even really have to think about it. 1,000 is really easy. 2,000, that's kind of fun. 4,000, now it's getting really exciting. And then all of a sudden, 5 figures, 6 figures, wow, I've already got a new car. I've already gone on vacation. What am I going to do? Like, what's really important to me? Mm-hmm. And so it's the structure, the mechanism is so simple, but the lessons can be really profound for people.
And that's interesting, because that's exactly what I was going to, jump in before you said it, is by the second week, you've taken care of all those things in the back of your mind that you want and you need money for. You're just thinking, oh, the car, the this, I got to fix the house. That's all gone. And now you start to be creative in the second week because you took care of all those nagging things. I think that's a powerful way to kind of jump into it. So I'm going to
and that's again part of the reason why we ask people to assume their debts are paid, so they don't miss out on that whole first week. Because if you really look at the statistics about how much debt the average American is carrying, it would take a big chunk, if not all or more, of that first week to pay off all that debt, and then they've missed out on that opportunity to go out to dinner and to put some money in their kids' college fund or whatever. Like you said, those things that are kind of nagging at them that they'd like to be able to do, but they don't feel like they have enough cash flow to do it.
So I'm going to ask you, Robert, how can we expand, and I think you talked about this on another interview, our self-imposed box, like a money box that we live in? How do we expand that, and what fears would come up when we expand it? Oh, back to you.
Well, at this point, I'm going to kind of dodge that question, because here's why. My experience is, like I said, that everybody plays the game a little bit differently, and people's self-imposed limitations will show up at different times and in different ways, and the solutions that they come up with will be very, very different. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to kind of seed the game with any kind of thoughts about how it should be played. One of the things that's really magical and really fun about this experience is that everyone can do it their own way. It's also really fun that we're doing it as a group. We have about 180, I think, people signed up right now. So we'll be interacting as a group. There's definitely that opportunity to say, hey, Wes, that's a great idea. That's what I'm going to do with my next check. Or, you know, I didn't even think of that, but I could absolutely get money from that source. So there is that opportunity. But I really am very conscious about not putting out any shoulds, you know, that you should save a certain percentage, or that you should, you know, not spend, or that you should give it away to other people, or whatever. I really want people to take full advantage of the opportunity to look inside, to look at themselves in the mirror and say, you know what, if I really did go to my mailbox today and there really was a check for whatever, $4,000, what would I really do? Would I give it away? And what does that say? And where else does that show up in my life? Would I invest it? Would I spend it? Would I divide it up? You know, and really, it's a great opportunity. And I know you and I have both heard this expression through work we've done about how we do anything is how we do everything. Right. And this game is a really profound opportunity to take a look at that. And you might see that you look at what other people are doing with their checks, and maybe you have a little judgment about that. You might see that some jealousy shows up, or whatever. There's all sorts of things that show up. But like you were saying earlier, all that stuff is totally made up. It's all meaning that we're heaping onto circumstances and situations. And in this case, circumstances and situations that are completely made up. I mean, it's not even real. Money itself, like in the real world, money isn't even real. You know, it's really just a way of measuring the value that we deliver to the marketplace and the appreciation that people have for the work that we do. But in the context of this game, sorry, that's my dog barking in the background. But in the context of this game, it's really made up, because it's, you know, it's funny money. I'm sending you a virtual check. So I'll dodge that question, but here's the thing. I know you and I are going to stay in communication. Maybe we can do another hangout at the end of the game. And what's really fun is not to hear from me about what's going to happen, but to hear from participants about what their experience of the game was. And you know, I think that would be much more valuable information than me answering that question and telling people what it's going to be like.
Well, I think one of the things that happens, because I played it once before with you, is that when you look at the check and as you think about what you're going to do with it, you actually have real feelings as you think about that. The real feelings do come up, even though it's pretend, and it's amazing how your body reacts to something that's fictitious that way. So the more you can think about it and react to it, you know, the more it will work in your brain and hopefully open up some areas for you and let you see how you do think about money. So I know that even just here, I was just thinking while you were talking, imagining, oh, if I had a check for this much, what would I do with that? And I had a real physical reaction to it. So it is real, whatever our brain does for it. So
yeah, and sometimes that second question about, you know, where else does this show up in my life? You know, and just as an example, if someone really feels compelled to give away the money, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing right about that. It just is what people do sometimes. But the opportunity is to look at that and to say, okay, where else does that show up in my life? Do I do that with the money that does show up in my life? If I had an unexpected windfall of money, would I feel like I need to give it away? And is that serving me? And if it does serve you, because, you know, you really, you know, identify yourself as a benevolent person and you really do want to, you know, give as much as you possibly can, then great. But sometimes people are giving away so much money, they're not taking care of themselves. And they're giving away money and it's costing them the ability to make an even bigger contribution. And those types of insights are the types of things that can show up in a game like this.
Well, I'm going to go to another question that I had for you is, how does the game expand our choices in life in terms of business and our home life? I mean, I don't want you to answer other people, but maybe examples of things that have happened in the past.
Yeah, I'm not going to dodge all your questions. No, I think the way that it expands our choices is it gives us the opportunity to ask questions that we usually don't ask. And it also gives us the opportunity to play this game called money on a larger scale than most of us normally play it. So as we get into that second week, and as the checks continue to double, I don't know anybody who's ever played this game when I've been facilitating it who hasn't at some point in this game been faced with their own self-imposed limitations around money. And sometimes it's on the where would it come from side. They just can't imagine a check for $100,000. Like some people, that's just too big a number for them to get their arms around. I don't have any idea how that kind of money might come into my life. So the opportunity is in the question, because for any of us, literally any of us, if someone is homeless, if they're completely broke, if they just went through a bankruptcy, whatever the situation is, it is possible. There are scenarios that could bring $100,000 into that person's life. And I'll use one of my least favorite, but it is a scenario, that person could be standing on a street corner, someone could give them $1, they could walk into a 7-Eleven and buy a lottery ticket, and they could win the lottery. It's not likely, it's not a strategy that I recommend, but it is possible. There are ways that money can come into people's lives, and we hear amazing stories, real world stories of people attracting money in totally unexpected ways. So if people are willing, when they get to that point of reaching their own self-imposed limitation, to stay with the question and say, okay, in this moment, I don't know, but if I did know, what would it be? Where would that money come from? And again, we don't need people to take a week off and go to a cave and meditate to answer these questions. Most people will find, if they just give themselves 30 seconds or a minute to just stick with the question and just keep asking, say, well, what if I did know? Where would it come from? Or maybe go to the Facebook page and scroll and see what other people are saying and say, well, you know what, that could happen to me. But that's where the real gift is, and that's where it really is a choice. If we keep asking these questions, it is going to expand our choices. And one of the benefits that I will kind of give people a heads up on going into the game is, if your self-imposed limitations right now are around, let's say, $10,000 or $20,000, and you take this game all the way to the end, we're going to get to $1 million. I just tell people, over the course of 2 weeks, we'll start at $500 and we'll end it over $1 million. And what I always tell people is, if you're stuck right now in the 10 to 20,000 range and you just don't know how to bring in that kind of money, and you take this game all the way to $1 million and really play it full out, and you back up and you really, you're not comfortable, $1 million isn't happening, but 100,000 is, are you going to be calling me and complaining? I don't think so. I think that would be a huge breakthrough for most people. And it is kind of that opportunity to, shoot for the stars. And if you only hit the moon, wow, that's a profound opportunity. So, and it really is. I mean, I love your question about choices. I consider all my work to be about choices. The foundation of my work is personal responsibility and getting people to recognize that, the results that we get are driven by the choices that we make. I have a program that I deliver in colleges and universities called Excellent Decisions. And it's about making decisions based on our vision and values instead of all the external pressure that we're under. And it really is about, the choices that we make lead to the actions that we take. And it's the actions we take that lead to the results we get. That's the name of the game right there. And again, this prosperity game is a really profound way to play with that and kind of see what we're doing now, take a look at how well that's working for us. And maybe the most profound choice is to choose whether to do something different, whatever that is.
Right. And the other thing I like is that it all starts with an idea. So every physical thing that happens, every company that gets started with an idea in someone's head. And so in this case, you're starting with this idea of a pretend check. And what are you going to do with that, and how are you going to go about changing your life and other people's lives, in your family and community with that money. But I wanted you to touch on something you talked about in one of your other talks that I've heard, where you talked about money really being a substitute for gratitude. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. I actually first heard that from a gentleman by the name of Robert Scheinfeld, who has been around this work for a very long time. And what he pointed out to me was that all money is an expression of gratitude.
Oh, I love that.
And when he first said that, I was like, no, come on, there's got to be more to it than that. But then when I really thought about it, I said, you know, he's right. That's all it is. You know, if you and I went out to dinner and we had like this fabulous dinner at this amazing restaurant and really great service and beautiful ambiance, but there was no such thing as money, what would we do? We would just express our gratitude, right? We would, you know, get up and give somebody a hug, or we would just shower them with praise and tell them it was the best dinner we ever had. You know, that would be our way of giving back. And the reason why, you know, you can go out to one restaurant and it costs you $200, and another restaurant it costs you $4. If you think about it, you know, how much do you appreciate that $200 meal versus the $4 meal?
Right.
And it really, you know, it's the value that we deliver and the amount of appreciation that that people feel in return. And as we get better and better at what we do, as we deliver more and more value, people appreciate what we do more and more. And that's why they're willing to pay more. If they don't appreciate, you know, if we're trying to get more money, but people aren't appreciating what we do more and more, that's a tough game to win. There's something really powerful about just recognizing. I know so many people have so much energy around money. You know, money is, it's good, it's bad, it's right, it's wrong. You know, I need more, I have to have it. You know, I don't have enough. All this energy around money. And I think the thing I like best about what Robert Scheinfeld opened up for me was, as soon as I just remember that money is appreciation, that's all it is, I can focus on finding ways to go out in the world and generating more appreciation, creating more value so people appreciate what I do even more, or creating more leverage so there's more people who appreciate what I do. This technology that we're using tonight gives us the opportunity to invite people into a conversation. There could be hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who could participate in this conversation all at the same time. And that gives us leverage. So if there's value in the conversation, and you know, there's a certain amount of appreciation from each person who's participating, suddenly we're getting a lot more appreciation. And that's why you see people who, you know, are doing a hangout or doing a webinar and they have thousands of people on the webinar. You know, they might be selling a low-priced item, but they might be selling a lot of it because people really appreciate what they're doing. And so, you know, the money that they're bringing in really is nothing more than an expression of the appreciation for what they're doing.
And I like what you said about the restaurant, because it would be the same as going to someone's house for dinner. So if you go to, they could give you just as beautiful a meal as you got in that restaurant, but you're not paying them, you're appreciating them and giving them gratitude for the great meal that you had at their house. So it's very
simple. And it's a great distinction, because again, we freak out about money, but really money is just an expression of the same kind of appreciation in a different environment. You know, called business. You know, these people are running a restaurant, it's a business. The way we express appreciation in a business environment is with money. Most businesses don't appreciate it too much. If you go in and you eat their food or you utilize their services and you say thank you very much and give them a big hug and profusely express your gratitude and then walk out, the chances are they're going to flag you down and look for a different kind of appreciation. But it's really no different. It's just a different environment called business.
Right. Well, and if we didn't have money, we'd have a barter system, so we'd have to do it differently. Money's been around long enough that we associate it as a separate thing, separate from gratitude and exchange of goods.
Yeah, it's gotten separated.
It has its own life.
Yeah, it has its own energy, for sure. People, again, put so much energy into money, and there's something really profound about remembering that it's totally made up, remembering that it's just a way of measuring something completely different. And if you look at people who are really successful with money, you see people who focus on the value that they create in the marketplace. They don't focus on the money.
Right, exactly. And before I go into, I think I've got one or two more questions here for you, but I just wanted to note to the people who did join live, and of course, if you're watching the replay, you'll see the same thing. On the right-hand side of your screen is the offer to play the prosperity game with us starting next week. And you can go ahead and click on the button that says sign me up, and it'll take you right to Robert's webpage where you can sign up and start receiving your checks. which is what everybody wants to get in the mail, is mailbox money. So
Woohoo!
yeah, go ahead and I'm just keeping that up while we keep chatting.
Good. Yeah, and
So-
I don't think I really made this clear, but I do want to make it clear. And Janice, you know me well enough to know where I'm coming from on this. But the Prosperity Game is free. You know, we do it as a way for people to get familiar with the kind of work that we do. I also do it as a way to collaborate with people like you, Janice. I've kind of co-hosted the game with a number of people and done what we're doing with bringing other people's communities into this conversation. And I do use it as an opportunity for people to get familiar with my work. But I can promise people what you're not going to get is some big hard sell. You will see information about the other things that I do, because that's part of the reason why we do this game. But you won't see, you know, again, a big sales pitch, you know, what can I get you to do to buy today, race to the back of the room kind of a thing. This is not what the game is about at all. And my commitment really is to people getting that full experience of recognizing their own patterns and limitations around money, regardless of whether they ever, you know, want to work with me as a coach or buy my book or sign up for anything that we're doing. The Prosperity Game is completely free, and there's no obligation of any kind to participate.
Just gratitude.
Yeah, a little I'll take all the gratitude, absolutely. Yeah, in this environment, money is not necessary as a way to express gratitude. And you know, honestly, and it's interesting you say that, because that is one of the reasons I continue to do the game.
Yeah.
This game is not something that puts me into a different tax bracket. It takes, as you now know, because you've been involved in the process this time, it takes a lot of time to set it up. It takes a lot of time to administer it. Every time there's a message going out, starting on Monday, there will be a video embedded in every message that'll be kind of a hint or an insight from me about, you know, things you can do to get the maximum benefit from playing the game, because I've been around it for a long time. I'll be playing along with you. I'll be spending a lot of time commenting on the posts that people make and kind of engaging that conversation on the Facebook page. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to do this. And I don't do it for the money, because there's not a lot of money in it. But what I do it for, one of the reasons I do it is for the appreciation. People genuinely love it. And that's interesting. I appreciate you saying that, because it kind of ties back to the conversation about appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Gratitude. And then, and there's also, I guess, an intro call before we start the game, which is not a hangout, but a regular phone call. So,
yeah, I'll be doing a conference call and giving people a little bit of a heads up. Some of the same things that we talked about here today, just about how the game works, the requests about, you know, assuming that your debts are paid, the invitation to make the commitment to be there all the way to the end, things like that. And just answer any questions that people have. You know, somebody already asked me if they could start with a bigger amount, you know, and questions like that come up. So, you know, it's funny what people come up with.
They're going to be on a different playing field than everyone else.
I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. But anyway, it's an opportunity if people do have questions, if they're having a technology issue, you know, that my messages are getting caught by their spam filter, or they didn't figure out how to register for whatever. You know, we get those things resolved on the welcome call. And then we'll do a call on the Friday at the end of the first week.
Okay.
Just to check in with people and get some sharing about what the experience has been like, and again, answer any questions that might be present for people. And then we'll do another call at the end of the game, which was originally scheduled to be on a Friday, but I'm going to push that out to the Monday after the game is done, so that we can kind of do a debrief. And if people are going to play the game, I strongly encourage you. Let me just look at my calendar real quick. It would be Monday the 27th would be the date we would do that debrief call. And for people who are playing the game, that is a really good call to be on. One, to share your own experience, because we'd love to hear from you, but also to hear just how different people's experiences are. You know, everybody got the same message, everybody got the same checks, everybody went to the same page, but people's experiences of this game are so profoundly different. And it's really interesting to hear. So again, if people are playing the game, strongly encourage you to be there for that debrief call at the end of the game.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. All right. So what strategies can an individual use to expand their limitations around money?
Wow, there's so many, and it really, it depends, I think, on people's individual circumstances. I think the first step is what we're talking about with this game is first of all, identifying what the limitations are.
So awareness.
Awareness is absolutely the first step, and then the step after that is going to involve a choice. A couple of things that come up on a really consistent basis in terms of people expanding what's going on in their world around money is, and I think this is really a huge piece for your community, is being willing to ask other people for help. There's such a kind of a pervasive thing in our culture about we need to do it ourselves. I believe it's a little more true for men than for women. Women are more willing to be collaborative. And it's interesting, if you look at the people playing the prosperity game, you'll see that about 2/3 are generally women. And it speaks to the fact that, men generally feel like, I don't need any help, the whole I don't need to ask for directions thing.
Right.
And they're a little reluctant to do something like this. Women in general are a little more collaborative. And as a result, I think we're seeing in our society that women are moving into more and more leadership positions and positions of control because they're willing to do that. And it's so important in today's world to be willing to do that. The other thing that I think is really critical for people is to be willing to just think bigger. To consider possibilities, and again, this game is a really important way to explore that because it identifies where we limit ourselves now. So if we're limiting ourselves at the the $100,000 level or whatever, just making up a number, just asking the question, what if? If I have an investor at $100,000, what if I had an investor at $500,000? What possibilities is that open for me? And just asking the questions and engaging in the conversation can be a huge piece of just, engaging possibilities. And actually, I'm reading some material right now about, the reality of the fact that the way we create the future is by getting into conversation with others and taking action. And if we think that the future is going to be created by me sitting here alone and not doing anything, how stupid is that? Those two elements. But if you think about it, if I'm willing to pick up the phone, if I'm willing to get on the computer, if I'm willing to engage in conversation with others, and if I'm willing to make requests and make offers, and if I'm willing to take action, that literally is how we create the future. And again, this game is simply an opportunity to play with that, kind of see what we're doing now, see how it's working for us, and if it's appropriate, make some choices, make some changes that can create more of the results we'd like to be seeing, and hopefully minimize some of the results we might be getting now that aren't working so well.
And I like the fact that the game is really a stepwise process. I know, going back to how it works with the private lenders, is sometimes you hear some of the big gurus say, well, I have this private lender and I just go to them all the time whenever I need to do a deal. And so I found in my teaching and coaching is that someone like that is not able to teach private lending to other investors because they initially found someone with so much money that they just funded all their deals. So they never had to practice those conversations of asking people for 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. They didn't have to do that over and over again because they just have one person funds their deals. And so, the students look at that, and that's such a big gap. How do I find that one person? And because they feel like that's so impossible, they never start. And so what I like to teach is, you're starting with small amounts that you can feel comfortable with, just like we're doing in the game, and you're building on that. And the lenders in real estate also, I call it dipping in your toe. So they kind of put their toe into the pond to see if it's warm or cool or whatever. So they'll often put in a small amount in the beginning, and then the next deal you do, they have 3 times as much money, but they didn't tell you about it on the first deal. And so that stepwise process, again, comes into effect where you have to be willing to work with those smaller amounts and get comfortable with that before you go into the larger amounts.
Yeah, and the way you're describing it, I think, is really great. And it's kind of like when we're lifting weights in the gym. You know, you don't go in
Right.
and pick up the 200-pound barbells and just start lifting. You start with the
Oh,
10,
I
the
thought that's
5,
what
or
men
whatever.
did. Is that
Yeah.
what men do? Yeah. And
Well,
then
you
they
know, but
strain their
well,
muscles, right?
men try to do that and end up in the emergency room. That's what we
Right.
do. But it's a really good analogy because, you know, and I think your example is great. I mean, the good news for that person who found a lender who's going to fund their deals is that they don't have to kind of jump through all those hoops. But the bad news is they've suddenly got a ceiling. You know, they haven't learned the skill that will take them not only to that point but beyond. And the
Right.
advantage for the person who's willing to engage in all those smaller conversations, you know, if you know, that person, you know, that you're talking about gets kind of to the $100,000 level and they're comfortable and they've got someone who's always willing to put $100,000 into their deal and they're kind of doing the deal over and over, that's good on the one hand. But first of all, if they lose that lender, they're back to
Yeah.
zero.
Right.
And second of all, they're kind of stuck there. They're not going to go any further than that, chances are. Yet the person who starts at 10 and masters that, and then moves up to 20 and masters that, and then moves up to 30, and they're engaging in all these different conversations, they're working with multiple people. First of all, if they lose one person, they don't lose their whole, you know, all their eggs in one basket kind of thing.
Right.
And second of all, when they get to 100,000, they're going to keep going. You know, they're
Right.
on an upward swing, and they're going to keep going. So there's such a huge advantage, again, to people that are willing to get into the conversation and take action. That's where the real long-term wins come from.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. So anyway, I was going to check the chat and I don't see any other questions. I asked people while you were talking if anyone had any questions for you. And I guess, you know, our answer to that would be play the game and then you'll have lots of questions. They'll keep coming as you play the game. So
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add before I close out our hangout?
No, I guess, you know, if people are watching the recording, I would remind people, you know, this is a hangout that you do every Thursday. We've talked about over the next couple of weeks, you know, continuing this conversation for people who are playing the game.
Right.
So if people are playing, you know, definitely jump on live. We'd love to hear from you about your experience. And for anyone who is watching the recording, you know, we hope you will join us, play the game. It only takes a couple minutes a day to play. It is free, and I'm not kidding. I mean, I could tell amazing stories all night long about people who have opened themselves up to possibilities that they were just completely shut down to. That then in the area of finance, playing this game for some people has literally completely shifted their life.
Wow.
And for other people, it's more of a fine-tuning kind of a thing, a simple awareness that maybe breaks them through in just one area. But the opportunity is there. And if people could just imagine, if you really knew where your self-imposed limitations about money were, and if you really had a better understanding of just what games you play with money, how you play the money game, and what you could do differently to create more of the results you want, that's the opportunity that's here if people want to play the game.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'm going to just bring up, so you see the offer on the right. If you're watching the replay, you could still go to, that takes you over to Robert's page. And so if he's doing something, you know, months later, and he's going to do the game again, you can still go to that same link, and the same as the link that he had underneath in there, robertmcphee.com/prosperity. You can always go to that because that's where he would play the next game as it came along. I'm going to just remind you guys about how to keep following me and find out and join the conversation. You can follow me on Twitter @PinkProfessor. And of course, my website, wisewealthuniversity.com. We have a blog there. And I do post the previous Hangouts there. So after you've joined one, you would have the link and you'd be able to go ahead and check out the blog and see all the previous Hangouts on there. And again, let's see if I can add that in. We did talk a little bit about the ebook, so I'm going to take down the game for a minute and add that ebook in case you didn't have a chance to figure out where that was. So that takes you over to my website, and it's wisewealthuniversity.com/PDFs. PV Lending. So when you click the download link, and if that's not on because you're watching YouTube replay, it's wisewealthuniversity.com/ the letter P, the letter V, and then lending. So that stands for private. So you can always go there as well and download that book and get yourself started on, getting your own private lenders with the ebook and the 10-day e-course. So I'm going to go ahead and anyway, tomorrow we'll be doing a call, and then the game starts next week. And I want to thank Robert for giving us all of his valuable time and letting us know his thoughts and experiences on breaking out of the limiting beliefs that people have about money. I think even though we're doing this to announce the game, I think there was a lot of valuable information that people can gain about their own thoughts and limiting beliefs around money. And I want to thank you, Robert, for doing that with us tonight. I'm going to close out with my quick 10-second video, and I hope to see you all next Thursday night. We'll be in the middle of the game, but I do have another guest who's a real estate investor, and we'll be talking about flipping houses on that topic. So every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Let me load up my video here. Thank you all for coming, and have a great evening.
Thanks, Janice.